What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pino here, breaking down my final thoughts for Week 13 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. Hopefully you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Friends, family, food, and football-wise was a good one over here on all accounts. But we move forward to the Sunday slate, which I always feel like we're behind the 8 ball a bit this week every single year because we're so focused on Thursday. Then the Sunday slate rolls around and it kind of just sneaks up on us. But we'll be here breaking it all down, going game by game, talking cash games, tournament stacks, and on the optimizer at the end to see who's popping the most as of right now. So if that all sounds fine and dandy to you, do me a favor, make sure you like down below. Scotch if brand new. Let's dive right into it. And really quick, let me sell out for a minute, but if you do want to check out all the extra content over on my website that I built, you can check it out at cpendfs.com, or there'll be a link down below in the description or the pinned comment. You can sign up completely free. And if you do want to check out all the extra stuff, it will give you a free week trial if you want to come in and check it out. But tons of projections, stack tools, optimizers for DraftKings and FanDuel, main, early, late slates. And I do cover the flagship showdowns, even though I never talk about them over on YouTube. But just a bunch of easy to use and comprehend data tables. And it's the only stuff I use each and every single week. It's been a very profitable season so far, as it has been the past couple of seasons. So I love that I can have it on a website now for everyone to check out. All right, and as always, we're going to go game by game, break this all down. Now, I'm going to go in depth on every single player, every single team, every single game. I don't want to be here for an hour talking. So we're going to talk more about the fantasy relevant things that I think are important to us this weekend. Now, I will say a lot of the good games were on Thursday. High over-unders for that one. I believe the lowest was at 48.5 for the Lions and Packers. And then you have Chiefs and Cowboys, which was an awesome game. And then the Bengals kind of blowing out the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson's skid continues. It's a really rough stretch of 3 games since returning from injury. We also have the Friday game. So we're kind of just left with the leftovers at this point, which is very fitting for Thanksgiving. Not a huge slate, kind of pretty much all gross games. There's not really one game on this slate that I am like really pumped up for. Because unfortunately, the Bills and Steelers might look like the best one, at least from a real life perspective. But it's kind of gross overall. I mean, the highest over-under we have is 45.5. That's for 2 games. That's the Bills and Steelers. And then Cardinals and Tampa Bay. So we'll have to make do with what we got. Everyone's dealt with the same deck of cards on this slate. So let's talk about it anyway. So we're going to start with the first game here with the Los Angeles Rams on the road in Carolina. 10-point spread in the Rams' favor, who look like the Super Bowl favorites as of right now. They've been clicking on all cylinders. Matthew Stafford is playing incredible. Prime Peyton Manning out there right now. He's got 2 elite wide receivers to get the ball to, and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, a solid running back in Kyren Williams, and a solid RB2 in Blake Corum. Tight end situation's a bit of a mess over there, but they make it work somehow. As for the Carolina Panthers, they are going to be without their top corner this week, which is definitely not something you want to have happen when you're going against Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. I am not really interested in any Panther on this slate, outside of stacks where I am using Matthew Stafford with some of his wide receivers, run it back with maybe a Ted McMillan or Rico Dowdle if you want. But this is not really a game I am looking to target. The main target here is Puka Nacua in cash games if you can't afford him. Of course, we do have JSN. Both are kind of in a similar situation where they are expected to I wouldn't say the Rams are expected to blow out the Panthers, but as 10-point favorites, that definitely does look a bit lopsided. So not really a game I am too interested in, just because of the fact that if I am stacking up the Rams, it gets expensive very, very quickly. So kind of a game I'm just looking at maybe a Puka Nacua, if anything, or maybe Kyren Williams. Moving on to the San Francisco 49ers on the road in Cleveland. I typically do not play teams on the road when they are playing the Cleveland Browns because that defense is incredible just in general, but when they're playing at home, they step it up a notch, and I think Brock Purdy's probably not going to have a fun day with Myles Garrett and that elite defensive line, who is basically first in each and every single category. So for me, this is not a game I am looking to target. I usually play CMC almost every single week, but if there's ever a week to not play expensive CMC, it's probably this one here in Cleveland. So this is a bit of a stay away game for me. Maybe if you want to play the 49ers defense versus Sanders or the Browns defense, I am fine with that, but that's basically the only thing I would be getting to. Next up, we have an AFC South showdown. Houston Texans on the road in Indy, 44.5 point over under, which doesn't usually get me too excited, but to be honest, on this slate, this game does not look that bad from a tournament perspective. And I'm actually on one side a bit more than the other, and it feels weird to say it, but I do like the Houston Texans in this spot, specifically like a 3-man stack here. I'm going to be in on CJ Stroud this week at only $5,000. Finally cleared concussion protocol. I feel like it's been a month now. But his projection at his price point honestly does not look too bad. I think potential 250 and 2 is in the cards here, which doesn't sound exhilarating, but at 5K flat, I think there is upside for more. And it's very easy to afford a little stack of CJ Stroud with Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz. I think it's a really nice three-man there. And you can run it back with anybody you want on the Colts. You don't necessarily have to run it back, but that's something I typically do. We know the Houston Texans defense is very good, but on the bright side for Indy, they are going to be traveling on the road. So I always give a slight little dip to defenses when that happens to be the case. The only issue I have with some of these pass catchers for Indy is that Daniel Jones is dealing with that fractured fibula, and I was seeing a couple of clips of him doing some drills. He doesn't look like he's moving that well. Now, of course, they're not going to throw him out there if he can't move at all. So I'm assuming he's going to be somewhat fine for the game here. So really, anybody like Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs would be viable options. I personally don't see myself spending $10K for Jonathan Taylor on this slate against Houston. If you want to do that and you have the money, by all means, go for it, but I'm probably going to be looking elsewhere. And believe it or not, as ugly as this sounds, this game actually might be one of the most popular ones for fantasy this week. The New Orleans Saints facing off versus the Miami Dolphins, 5.5 point spread in their favor. They'll be home in Hard Rock, which does make me feel a little bit better about them. 24.5 implied team total. Saints coming at 18.5. Do have some injury situations over in New Orleans, specifically at the running back position. Alvin Kamara is going to be out for this game. We have Devin Neal sliding in as the RB1. We also have Stime back there. I don't know what they're going to do with this situation completely, but we have to assume Devin Neal will be the RB1 in this offense. He's only $5,000. I don't hate the spot versus Miami. Running back situation on this slate is not very good in general, so playing Devin Neal I don't think is going to be something that I would scoff at 5K flat. If we're going to get volume, potentially 15 plus touches, that's good enough for me on this slate. Very cheap over on FanDuel as well. I like Chris Olave as part of stacks in this game, and honestly, I think he could be a pretty solid cash game wide receiver as well. But I am not going to be playing any quarterbacks from this game, but you can still get a little mini game stack. Say you play Devon Achane or Jalen Waddle, you can play Chris Olave, Devin Neal on the other side. That's perfectly fine. I just don't see any situation where either quarterback really makes it into my builds. But Achane and Waddle do look like some of the top plays on the entire slate. 6,800 for Waddle. We know he's going to get targets with no Tyreek Hill in this lineup, and we know the upside with Achane. He showed it versus Buffalo. He's a workhorse running back, should see around 20 total touches, and a good chunk of that being in the passing game, which is something that's extremely valuable on a site like DraftKings. It keeps his floor extremely high, and it also makes his ceiling very high. He's basically the wide receiver 2 in this offense, so at $8,300, given the fact that I don't really like the spots that these other expensive running backs are in on this slate, you get a bit of a discount on him, and I fully expect him to be the highest running back on the slate, and he's also my projected RB1 points-wise. All right, next game up here. I think we pretty much are just about to talk about my 3 favorite running backs in the slate. We just talked about Achane, and then this game features my next 2 favorites, Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall. Other than that, running back gets very gross very quick on this slate from a point per dollar perspective, just in general. So those are basically the running backs I will be targeting unless anything else pops up throughout the week. But overall, this game, not that exciting. 39.5 point over under. The Falcons are going to be on the road in New York. We're going to be out of the dome here with Kirk Cousins under center. Also, Drake London's going to be out once again. 2.5 point spread in the Falcons' favor. But yeah, other than really Bijan Robinson, I don't see anything else to like in this game. You know, the volume's going to be solid for him. Unfortunately, Tyler Algier is a thing. He will still goal line touches, which does zap his upside a little bit. But we know Bijan is still one of the best running backs in the game, and the volume is still good enough. And we're not paying nearly $10,000, and I feel like the upside is very similar to Jonathan Taylor, very similar to Christian McCaffrey on this slate, so I would take the discount along with Devon Achane. Then as for the New York Jets, it's pretty gross over here these days. Obviously, no Garrett Wilson. So we're stuck with guys like John Mechie, A.D. Mitchell, Lazard, Williams, Tyler Johnson, Taylor. Pretty nasty. Now, I do like Breece Hall at $6,000. I feel like he's a tad bit too cheap. I like the volume we're going to get with him, point per dollar wise. He looks honestly not too bad on this slate. As for the wide receivers, I think John Mechie is still at a nice price point. I talked about him last week. I thought him and A.D. Mitchell, just as pure punt plays, playing from behind, made some sense. We saw John Mechie actually have a pretty solid game. So at $3,000, I still think he's in a solid spot. Now, this game is projected to be a bit closer, but I'm fine with Mechie as a punt option, but other than that, I really don't like anything else in this game. So Mechie, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, that's basically it. Now this game, I'm actually excited it finally came up because this is one of the most fun ones to talk about this week. So we have the Arizona Cardinals on the road in Tampa Bay. They have cleaned up the past 2 weeks at home, Arizona that is, because the stack has been very simple. You play Brissett and you pair his two top pass catching options in Michael Wilson with Marvin Harrison out and Trey McBride. And they have 8 each and every single week. And it's been as easy as that. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess fortunately for Marvin Harrison himself, it looks like he may be back this week. He's been practicing. He's still currently listed as questionable. They did not completely confirm that he's going to play this week. So I really hope, no offense to him, that he just sits out one more week and we can have one more fun in the sun with Jacoby Brissett, Michael Wilson, and Trey McBride. Now, unfortunately, the prices keep rising. Just a couple of weeks ago, we got Brissett at, I think, $4,800 on DraftKings. We had Michael Wilson at, $34 or $38? And we had Trey McBride around $6,600 or $6,800. Unfortunately now, for McBride, you got to pay $8,000. Michael Wilson, you got to pay $6,000. And Brissett, you nearly have to pay $6,000. So the value is over, but this is still a pretty solid spot. We saw Tampa Bay get shredded the past couple of weeks versus the Bills and Rams, which of course, 2 great offenses. So I mean, we'll cut them a little bit of slack there, but I said that the Cardinals can have success. Now, personally for me, if we do get news that Marvin Harrison is back, I still prefer Michael Wilson as the wide receiver one in this offense. Still has a slightly better projection. It's going to be close. I don't think Marvin's going to completely go away by any means, but I do still have a slight lean towards Michael Wilson because the chemistry he has shown with Jacoby Brissett has been incredible. And we have seen Marvin Harrison do nothing close to Michael Wilson yet in basically his career. Obviously, he's had great games, but the way he's been getting targeted and just producing, Michael Wilson has been awesome. I don't think I have to sell you on Trey McBride, but he does not project as well for me, point per dollar wise, as he has the past couple of weeks. Also, if Marvin Harrison is indeed back, the projection did kind of dip a couple of points. I think we had him around 19.8 or like around 20 points the week prior. And as you can see, it did dip a little bit. Now, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are also getting somebody else back this week. Bucky Irving will be finally back into the mix. So that leaves pretty much 3 guys in the backfield, him, Sean Tucker, and Rachaad White, although it seems like Sean Tucker is the guy you want in this offense over Rachaad White these days. Now, I assume it's going to be a bit of a split. The coach did say they're going to have Bucky Irving in, and we'll see how he's rolling. That's going to dictate the usage we will see for his game. I personally don't think I can really trust him week 1. We don't know exactly what the usage will be, but just something to monitor. Baker Mayfield did leave the game right before half last week. Looks like he's going to be good to go. He's at $5,900. I don't think anyone's going to really want to play him. I still prefer the Arizona side for stacking because I think it's a lot simpler. But if you're looking for the turn of play that nobody's going to be on with a high implied team total 25.5 and a pretty cheap Baker, I don't hate the idea of that in GPPs. They're going to continue to ramp up Chris Godwin. We still have Ibuka, although he's kind of disappeared lately, in Tez Johnson and Cade Otton. But kind of a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. So even though they have one of the higher implied team totals this week, it's not really a team I'm looking to target very much. But I will say Marvin Harrison is out. I really like that 3-man stack over in Arizona. Moving on to Jacksonville and Tennessee, we have another AFC South showdown here. 6-point spread in the Jaguars' favor. And once again, another team that is getting a guy back, Brian Thomas Jr., comes in at $6,200. And not that I really wanted to stack up Jacksonville much anyway, but this just makes it a kind of really confusing offense. It helps Trevor Lawrence, of course, getting BTJ back. But now we have Thomas, Myers, Parker Washington, who we've seen him get involved over the past months now. We have Brenton Strange back in the lineup, had a nice day last week. Tootin, ETN, just a lot of mouths to feed. I think they can have a good day overall offensively, but knowing the right guy to get in our lineup, I think it's going to be extremely difficult. And I'm not really sure it's worth trying to do that, especially in single entries. If you're playing 20 max 150, getting some shares of that in stacks is fine, but not something I'm overly excited about. And for Tennessee, I just can't really see myself playing anybody over there, so it's going to have to be a bit of a pass. I'd have to look it up, but I feel like Tennessee has played at home the past 4 weeks now. Probably not true, but that's just what it seems like. All right, moving on to Minnesota and Seattle. 41.5 point over-under in this one. Seattle will be playing at home, 11.5 point favorites. And the big news here is that J.J. McCarthy is going to be out. Now, usually your starting quarterback going out is a pretty big detriment to your offense, but he's already a big detriment to his offense himself. If you're looking at some of his analytical rankings or the advanced metrics, he's like one of the worst quarterbacks ever. Now, it's still early in his career, so we'll see how it pans out. But right now, it's not looking too hot for Mr. 9 over there. Vikings come in with a 14.5 implied team total. We have Max Brosmer at quarterback. He is the stone man, but I cannot see myself playing him on the road in Seattle for his first start. Sounds like an absolutely dreadful time. That's going to kill Justin Jefferson. They're going to kill Jordan Addison. I think it's basically an unplayable offense. As for Seattle, they do have one of the higher implied team totals in the slate. I assume they're going to put up points, but I really don't trust Minnesota to push them too much. I think Sam Darnold can probably get 220 in 2, which is price point. Is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. But I don't think it's anything we're going to absolutely need in tournaments to take this down this week. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. You never know. But JSN always in play. This massive price point, really $10,000, but 100 plus receiving yards, 7 plus catches, 1 or 2 touchdowns in play every single week. He has been incredible this season. Him or Puka, I feel like you're going to want one of those guys in your lineups this weekend. I'm kind of leaning Puka as of right now, but you cannot go wrong with either. Other than that, though, not a game I am loving. I do think some people are going to get the Kenneth Walker. The ownership might get a little bit higher than I'd want it to. It's just the split situation. Olani is doubtful for this game. Not that he's much of a threat anyway, but Kenneth Walker's Zach Charbonnet show. It's just you're going to have to kind of get lucky of who gets the goal line carries for the most part. Moving on to the Chargers and the Raiders. I do want to mention Omar and Hampton did get rolled out. So as you can see, straight zeros here. But that happened just a little bit ago. So then I got a chance to update him out of the lineup. But man, just really another uninspiring game. We know how bad the Raiders have been. We know how bad Geno is. I just can't really expect much out of that offense. Trey Tucker's the wide receiver 1. He'll get targets. Brock Bowers is an elite tight end, and this offense can only go as far as Geno goes, and that's typically not much. So don't really have much interest there. As for the Chargers, it's a decent implied team total. I obviously don't really respect too much of the Raiders defense. As bad as this slate is, I'm not opposed to Justin Herbert in tournaments. He's $6,500. You have Lab McConkey, Keenan Allen, QJ. Gatson, I am currently projecting as the highest owned tight end. He's currently my favorite for cash games, which I know we've kind of just been riding the Trey McBride train, but at his price point now, we're starting to get priced out a bit. And I do think we have to prioritize maybe the running back position with guys like Bijan, Devon Achane, and Breece Hall, potentially. So I don't really think we're going to have the money for that, but I really do like Gatson. And for whatever reason, when I went back to edit this video, everything from here on out deleted. So that's why I'm in different attire at this point, but we can redo this section. We're almost done anyway. But for the Los Angeles Chargers, we just got done talking about Gatson. I do like this team in general. Justin Herbert does project as my QB2 on this slate. Not extremely far off Josh Allen, but it's definitely a tier break at that point, but you are getting that $1,000 discount, which might be worth it. And I do think it's a bit easier to stack with Justin Herbert. We do have the tight end. We have Lad McConkey, who I do like at wide receiver 1. But I will be honest, after getting the news that Omari Hampton is not going to be back this week, I was able to confidently give Vidal the RB1 role. We've also seen Travion Williams get some work in the recent weeks with no Jared Patterson. But Vidal does, on a slate that does not have very many good running backs, at $5,700, a near 15-point projection, honestly looks pretty good. So he was popping in some runs once I was able to update that later this evening, which I'm kind of glad that the file did get deleted because we do have the more updated information for me. So I do like Vidal quite a bit. And honestly, I think you could maybe make a case for him in cash games if that's kind of where maybe your flex spot or your RB2 slot kind of leaves you. All right, so the final game we have to talk about here, Buffalo Bills on the road in Pittsburgh. This will be a very good real life game. I'm just not how sure it's going to be for DFS purposes. Does it have the projected QB1 on this slate? Yes, of course. It's Josh Allen, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have not been that great versus the pass or fantasy quarterbacks this year. The only problem with playing Josh Allen in DFS, if you are someone that wants to stack with him, it's kind of hard to know who to do that with. Khalil Shakur has upside. We saw that versus the Houston Texans, but he also has a lot of downside. We saw that versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that was a game they put up, 35, 40 points. Josh Allen had 6 touchdowns. Shakir does absolutely nothing. So it's a bit tough. They also brought in Brandon Cooks, which would be awesome if the year was 2018 and I was still in college, but unfortunately, that is not the case. He is also not on FanDuel. That is a fake price tag. I need a price tag for this to run correctly. I don't know if they're going to add him or not, but you can play him on DraftKings if you want for $3,400. Joshua Palmer is also going to be questionable for this game. Dalton Kincaid is also questionable. We'll see if they play. If they don't, it obviously solidifies the roles for some of these guys. We'll see Knox slot in as the tight end 1, But as we have seen with Kincaid out, Knox does not present the upside that Kincaid does. They brought in Gabe Davis, and he has actually done well with the opportunities that he has seen. Keon Coleman has been a healthy scratch the past couple of weeks. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. We will see. But this is just not really a game that it's good. I think for real life purposes, it's a great AFC matchup. Could maybe see it in the playoffs once again, but I think for DFS, there's just better places to go. I think the lineups flow a little bit better. Now, Josh Allen as a one-off is perfectly fine if you have the money. I just feel like I'm going to allocate my funds elsewhere than the quarterback position. Pittsburgh Steelers, not really any priority plays here. If I was going to play anybody, it would be Jalen Warren. I do like running backs versus Buffalo. They have obviously not been good defensively versus the run this year, or just really defensively in general, but Jalen Warren would be my number one option, but it's still a split between him and Kenneth Gainwell, so the upside is a bit capped. And once again, I almost forgot, I want to show you guys the stack table here, because we try to find that team in the upper left quadrant. Sometimes there isn't, sometimes there is not, but let's go to the table here. Yeah, we're just on DraftKings. Let's go to team salary versus implied team total, because that left quadrant does try to indicate a little bit of value there. So the cheaper we go, and then the higher the implied team total. It's a nice little sweet spot for tournaments at times. Although not looking like much. We do have the Miami Dolphins here, which I guess I like two players on that team. That's basically it, unfortunately. It's Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle. They're pretty much doing all the heavy lifting there. Problem is, though, they're going to be pretty chalky, so I don't think you're getting contrarian by any means. Pittsburgh Steelers are towing the line. I don't really know how to feel about that, but the Houston Texans, a team that I do like, they don't have a ton of players that project super well, but I think like the core pieces for their price tags look pretty solid. So it's definitely a team that I'm going to be on. But as you can see in this upper right quadrant, these are the teams that everyone's going to want to play. We have the Rams up in the top right, the Chargers, Jaguars, Bills, Buccaneers, Colts, the good offenses. Now there is only two teams in the bottom right. I am covering it, but you can kind of see it's the 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals is definitely a team that I plan on being on, but we'll have to wait and see on the official status of Marvin Harrison. I'm hoping he is out, but as of right now, it does look like he's going to give it a go. And as promised, we're going to run the optimizer here to see who is popping. It's Friday evening, so keep in mind things can change by the time Sunday rolls around. But this is all we have to work with for now. So we have 150 lineups set, 25% randomness, 100% global max, not changing anything with lineup sum ownership or individual player ownership exclusions in lineups. I'm going to set a 2-stack minimum. I'm also going to do another crunch with no stacks whatsoever so we can kind of see the difference. I'm going to disallow tight end and flex. That saved it from the Thanksgiving slate that I had that locked in. Now, if I'm actually buddy 150, we're taking more time. We're setting up team-specific rules. We're doing exposures, yada, yada, yada. You get the idea. But we're just dry running this with some very minimal stack settings. So let's see who is coming in as this builds. Really quick, so we can get a couple more lineups populated in. We only have 40 right now. Top teams early: Miami, New York, disgusting. Seattle, New Orleans, Los Angeles, Houston. I mean, I'm kind of surprised there's so many Jets. I'm assuming it might be just using one of those punt wide receivers like Mechie or Mitchell. Also Breece Hall as well. I could see that being the case. But we talked about it. It's an ugly slate this week, so things might look ugly, but it could end up working out at the end. But yeah, we have almost 150 done already, so let's head over to QBs. Keep in mind, we're forcing the double stack, so some of these guys that just have cheap stacks that project well for the price tag, they're going to get jammed in more than a typical projection. So like if we take away the double, you guys will see the difference. Like I highly doubt we see the New Orleans quarterback this high just using no stacking options, because I'm assuming it really likes Olave. It might like the tight end. That's the only thing I can think of. But CJ Stroud, far and away, we talked about that. The stack is pretty cheap. Stroud's only $5,000. Nico Collins, sub 7K, who was doing very well with Davis Mills, but maybe we'll see if he can keep that up with CJ Stroud. We have a long history of him doing well with Stroud. And then Dalton Schultz, one of the top tight ends on the slate, in my opinion. Josh Allen, still getting pretty high up. It's just kind of hard to stack with him sometimes, but we will see. Justin Herbert getting some love. It's very easy to stack. Ladd McConkey, Gatson, Tua getting a little bit more love than I would like. Tyrod Taylor, Matthew Stafford, but it's a gross week, so I'm not overly surprised. I thought Jacoby Brissett would be a bit higher, but he just really wasn't getting any love whatsoever. I'm assuming just because of the price point of Trey McBride at $8,000, that's kind of tough to fit on a slate like this. I bet if we take that off, though, we'll see him probably closer to the top, because I know on a point per dollar basis, he is one of my top quarterbacks for the week. Running back, yeah, pretty much the big three plus Vidal. H-Hands at the top, Brees Hall, Vidal, Robinson, Ashton Genty getting some love there. Devin Neal, we talked about him. He's $5,000. I mean, he should get 12 plus touches. It's not pretty. It's not a good offense, but it is what it is on this slate. Wide receiver, Chris Olave, getting a lot of love. That's going to obviously coincide with the quarterback being high, Jalen Waddle. There's the Jets exposure, Brees Hall and John Mechie, which kind of what was expected there. Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Khalil Shakir. Jaden Higgins getting thrown in there with some of those CJ Stroud stacks. Although I imagine when we take away the stacking option, Higgins will certainly drop. Michael Pittman, which I'm assuming is run back options in that stack. Blake Washington, QJ. Tight end, I would guess tight end is probably going to be Gatson and Dalton Schultz and Jawan Johnson getting in there. But it's basically all tied to the quarterback getting thrown at that cheap price point. But Dalton Schultz leading the way. Gatson, Jawan Johnson. And then tight end is, it is what it is. It's just pretty much a randomness. But as you can see, like, there's the Saints double stack. It does not look pretty at all. But on a slate like this, it might not even be crazy at $4,400. All right, but let's take the stacking option off, because I always like seeing the difference there. All right, so we're going to hit optimize. It should be crunching fairly quickly. The team exposure is probably going to be pretty similar. I don't see that changing too much. You're going to see a large chunk of the Jets, the Saints, the Texans, Chargers, Dolphins. I think that would happen pretty much every single time. And just because you leave a 0 in the stack doesn't mean it's not going to stack. We're seeing a lot of QB +1 here, a lot of QB +2. Down we would see QB +3 in that situation. But let's pull up quarterback here. 150 has concluded. And Brissett, like, he was not showing up at all with the double stack, and he has been the previous 2 weeks, but the pricing has definitely caught up. But now when you take that away, Jacoby Brissett, the second best option behind CJ Stroud, Baker Mayfield getting thrown up higher. Allen dropped a little bit. Justin Herbert, I believe, dropped a little bit. Saints QB definitely went down, which is exactly what I expected in that situation. Running back should look very similar. The only thing I see different is Devin Neal's a bit higher, which I'm assuming because they lost a lot of the pass catching side of that offense, kind of bumped up the running back. Kenneth Walker, I feel like I'm a little bit lower on Kenneth Walker than the industry. I do think he'll be a bit higher owned than this, with them being such big favorites. I could see that, but man, the Seattle backfield's never something I'm too interested in. Wide receiver, I might have to tone down the Mechie projection. Myself personally, would I play this much Mechie? No. He'll be on the field. He'll get targets. He is cheap. And he's not a complete bum, but the team he is on is just pure trash. Olave, Shakir, Waddle, Puka, QJ, it's tough because with all the mouths they have to feed in that offense, I mean, one of them's going to bust. Like, do they all look like good plays on paper? Yeah, all three. Keenan Allen, McConkey, Gatson, QJ, but they just all can't get there in the same game. Over the course of the season, can they all have good weeks eventually? Yes, but in the same game, it does make it tough. Tight end, Kyle Pitts getting love, which just feels disgusting. I know there's no Drake London, but Dalton Schultz, Gatson, Jawan Johnson, Harold Fannin popping in there. Kincaid, if he plays, could just be a corpse we're talking about. But defense is random. That's not something I ever take too much account in. But with that being said, that's all for today's video. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, or even if you didn't, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel if brand new. If any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. But I wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.